Hello, anybody in there? Alrighty. Good morning, guys. It is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023. Another glorious morning. We're getting a nice follow through on the bullish side of things here. Let's go ahead and talk about what happened yesterday, which, again, another day where it just was super sideways, right? I mean, there's no way to cut it. It was just kind of a disaster type of day. We expected the market to sell off, or we had a lot of clues that the market should have made an attempt to pull back. So when we opened in yesterday, we were expecting the market to push lower, but our first expected support area, the first level I put in the report, I'm not going to pull the report up on the screen right now. Our first expected support area was 45.41, this little swing down here, up to 50% of the day before. Remember, with a potential bearish signal from the high of the day before on the daily time frame, we wanted to see the price get down below 50% of the day before to get our first confirmation that the bearish stuff we're seeing from the highs was going to follow through. Okay. And what happened? Let's take a look here. This is the shortest time frame that we watch. And the market came right to 50% of the day before. Let me get rid of this box here. 50% of the day before, our magenta line worked for some really great trades. However, they didn't really go anywhere, right? So it held 45.5, came up to 49.5, right? Held 45.5, came up to 49.5. And it never really even got a 5-point bounce. But interestingly enough, that is where we found our first support within the first couple minutes of the open there. And we got into, again, kind of like this Pong thing back and forth between the two roadmap levels. And this is one of those moments where it's kind of tricky to decide what you want to do here, because in some instances, what it will do is it'll do this, peak down below, and then rip things higher. And then other cases, this is just the beginning of the bulls trying to hold things up, and then the whole bottom drops out and they fall. So this is kind of like a moment of truth if you were watching the charts. And then finally, we get the breakdown. So once this occurred, if you were still waiting to figure out what you wanted to do for the day, that should have been a clear enough picture for you. Hey, look, we're continuing the direction of what we want to see. We're breaking through our first expected support zone that Justin gave us right here. And maybe I would want to get on the bear side of things. And that's where yesterday got tricky, because the sell-off and the push to lower lows for the day did occur. And that was the expectation, but it didn't really go anywhere. So we got a lower low for the day, and then they brought it right back up, and we chopped around 50% of that range is price action, right? If you look at the high of that day, of yesterday, including the overnight price action, to the low of the day, we came all the way down, and then they popped it right into the 50% area of that, and then just chopped around the rest of the day. So I don't know what to tell you guys. I can't control the market, and sometimes this is how it is. In fact, recently I've said this pretty often, right? If we zoom back, and maybe even on a 60-minute, this would be a clearer picture. This was the chop we were stuck in for 2-3 days, and we broke out couple days ago, and that is why I was excited, because it looked like maybe we're going to get a continuation of this directional move, except, of course, we had the bearish stuff from the highs, but we got out of that chop zone, and I was expecting to get some nice action, and then we just pushed up to a new pocket and then just chopped around again. So that's just how it goes, guys. I mean, most of the time the market is going to be more sideways than it is directional, and that's just kind of the nature of the S&P. But that was it. I mean, not much to really review here. So if you were looking to find a trade, you got confirmation that maybe you should have been on the bearish side once we broke through 50% of that previous day. So you had an opportunity to try a short off the 200. Again, didn't go anywhere. And then a short off 50% of the previous day. And that really would have been the smarter trade, in my opinion. Because if you're looking back and you're seeing the market coming up here, the main area of resistance was 50% of the day before, right? It wasn't down at the 200. So the 200 was a more aggressive trade. It's not like it was a wrong trade or a bad trade. We had the scaffolding and the 200 sitting right here. This could have been a nice little peek into there and a failure right off of it. So I'm not saying it's not a bad, that it's a bad trade, but it was more aggressive than just being patient and waiting for the market to retrace back to the morning support. So it was holding, 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 holding. Again, not only was it just a random support area, it was 50% of the previous day. So when the market came back up, yes, if you got aggressive and got short right here, you would have been stopped. Or maybe if you noticed that the market actually found support right off the FMA. Told you this is part of the scalping strategies. When you see the FMA almost pop in and hold the price, that's not a great sign for a trade. And there was your peak above with a bearish divergence, so that might have given you a little bit of confidence, but then look at it held the FMA to the tick and then started to inch back up. So at that point, if I was short, probably would have been thinking about, hey, maybe I move my stop right there and I just accept that if this doesn't rotate from this second high and we start to break lower, I'm just going to take a small stop out right there. Maybe reconsider entering around 50%. And 50% was the money shot there. Probably would have been the best. In my opinion, the best trade of the day was to get short off 50% of the previous day. It was the morning support. It was a critical level that holds pretty often. And we were confirming the bearish bias. So that was the best trade of the day yesterday. How much did you get out of it? You might have got 5 points if you were lucky. So again, it was a tough day. They brought it right back up and then held 50% of the previous day and then just kind of chopped around. So if you take a bird's eye view of the whole day, the main area of rotation was 50% of the day before, right? We had a big sell-off, 10, 20, 30, 40 points, bounces right off of it, gets below it, holds it and tries to push lower, and then gets back above it and then holds it to the upside, right? So that was really the critical level of the day there. Not really much else to mention here. There was something I wanted to talk about in terms of retracements, and I think I don't have it marked on my chart now, and I forget what I wanted to mention. But there was an interesting Fibonacci thing that went on yesterday as well. But anyway, let's go ahead and see what happened in the overnight session here coming in today. So they did end up, so yesterday, they got back above 50%. We're holding it there for a while. Then they got it back below 50% at the end of the day here. And this is now in the extended hours for us futures traders, and pushed it technically to a new low, right? So that new low is where we found this strong support coming into this overnight session. There were some really nice bullish signals down off that low that we'll talk about in our pre-market this morning. And interestingly enough, we're now up 30, 40 points from that low. And as I speak, as you can see, we're actually breaking through the high of yesterday. Good thing, obviously, for the bullish side of things, if they're not just going to do a peak above and fail. So last night, again, they popped up, found resistance right around 50% of that day before now, pulled back. Unfortunately, the plays off VWAP were not nice and clean yesterday. And honestly, if you were looking to find trades inside of that chop zone there, probably not a smart place to be looking for trades in the overnight session. That is anywhere from literally 45.53 half to 45.45 half. Total disaster, right? So not too surprising. They did kind of go right through it, all through in here. But eventually we started to get this breakout through, and notice it was a total battle right inside of that pocket. Came up, failed, came up, failed, came up, failed, right around 50% of the day before. And then finally, we got the breakout, right? And as that breakout occurred, you got an opportunity for aggressive trades off the FMA up to the high of yesterday now. So looking like potentially a breakout. Could also be one of those peak above and fails. Let's go ahead and jump into our pre-market